How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tesvav, Daf 15 of Masechta Sanhedrin, friends, your friends. Before we begin, I just want to take a second. Today is the Levaya, the funeral of my grandmother. Friday Ratzabas Sarah, although I guess now it would be her father's name. Who is that? Who is her father? Maybe it was Is it maybe Zalman? Or Kasil Yehuda? Maybe Kasil Yehuda? Anyways, it's going to be at Wellwood Cemetery that we always talk about. Yeah, my grandmother was a very quiet woman. Yiras Shamayim. She was a Holocaust survivor. One of the remaining Holocaust survivors, and she came to America. I think first she was maybe in France for a point. As far as I'm aware, she never really spoke about. I don't think anybody really knows her story. And she came to America, and she got married and had a family. And 5 children and grandchildren, she was very quiet, but very committed and loving and dedicated woman. And that was my grandmother. And we will learn. We'll learn as a zchus for her and for everyone who needs it. Says the Gemara. Okay, so Daf Tesvav Be'etzem is just going weiter in the Mishnah, right? Of course, we had this huge Mishnah on Daf Beis, and we're just like going one piece at a time. So we're going to do some more pieces. So we're going to start on Daf Yudalim Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Arochin v'chulei. So the Mishnah had said that Arochin HaMetaltalin are with 3 judges. So my Arochin HaMetaltalin, what are movable Arochin? So first of all, what's Arochin in general? What's Erech? So Erech is generally, I think Erech maybe even solely refers to erech of people. People have a certain inherent value, as opposed to their domim, as opposed to their actual value. For actual value, you would say, well, say you were to purchase this individual as an eved, how much would this person cost as an eved? You would actually evaluate their real value. But this is a preset value based on gender and age. I don't remember all the details. I think a man between 20 and 60 is 50 shekels, a woman between 20 and 60 is 30 shekels, and then there's between 5 and 20, a month and 5, above 60. So there's all sorts of different things, but they're predetermined, they're fixed amounts based on gender and age. So now the thing is, what's Erech for metaltalin? The Erech of my phone. I can say I'm going to give the domim of my phone, the value of my phone, but not what's Erech. So my Arochin HaMetaltalin Omer V'Gidol Amarav Be'Omer Erech Kli Ze Olai. It's talking about if a person says the Erech of this particular vessel is upon me, I'm responsible to pay that value to the Erech, to the base of Mikdash. Omer V'Gidol Amarav HaOmer Erech Kli Ze Olai, that if a person says that the Erech of this particular value is upon me, no saying Damav. He gives its value. So because there's no my time because a person knows she'ein erech lekli. There's no such thing as arochin for kliya. You have arochin for people, not for vessels. So therefore, what does Rashi say? What does Rashi say? Because a person is not going to say epis for no reason at all. So therefore, if he's saying erech klizeh, we assume that he means demei klizeh, and he pays the value. And that is why he pays the value to the Beis Mikdash. Hi arochin ha metalton arochin shel metalton miboile. So it should be arochin of metalton. Tni arochin shel metalton. Okay, so say arochin of metalton. Rav Chizde Omer says, Rav Chizde Omer Avimi, so Rav Chizde name of Avimi, b'matbis metalton la'arochin. It's talking about b'matbis metalton la'arochin. What does that mean? It means that, well, a person says, let's say, I don't know, let's just say, erki alai. Okay, I'm going to give my erech to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, me, I'm between 30 and 50. I'm a boy. So we're talking about 50 shekels. 50 shekels. Okay, Baruch Hashem, I have 50 shekels. But anyways, if I didn't want to pay 50 shekels in cash, I could look around and I could say, all right, that thing over there, that is going to be hektish. And then I'm going to redeem that be'etzim from hektish. Okay. One second. Yeah. And now you're going to come and redeem that vessel. So we need 3 judges to evaluate the value of that vessel that you're going to use as payment for the erech. Okay. Right. So you have arochin to pay. And you are then makdish different vessels, and the value of those vessels is going to go towards paying the erech. So in terms of evaluating the value of those vessels, needs 3 people. It should be the metaltalin of the arochin. So when you have arochin in the be'etzim, you're kind of like, I don't know, transferring it in some ways or applying it to these vessels. So it's metaltalin shel arochin. Okay, so say movable objects of arochin. Alright, Rabbi Bo says, erki olai. Rabbi Bo says it's talking about when a person says, my value is upon me. Okay, so again, if we use the example of me, so we're talking about 50 shekels, and I'm not paying it. Whatever, a person says that he's going to give his own erech to the Beis Mikdash and he's not paying. So the kohen comes to say, hey, look, if you don't have the cash, then we're going to have to take stuff. So, but kohen legabas mimenu metaltlin, Bishlosha. So if the kohen comes and says, look, if you don't have 50 shekels, so we got to take some stuff. Hey, maybe I'll take that silverware over there. That's 50 shekels. Right? Or kaikos. So if he says, I'm going to take, your vegetable garden over there. So ba'asar. So we need, so if we're talking about property, you need 10 people to evaluate the value of the property so that we know how much it's worth to be able to pay off the erech. Okay, so if it's movable objects, then it's 3 evaluators, and if it's property, then it's 10 evaluators. So I understand to release from hektish, you need 3. Right, so kilu, right, when a person says, and now he's kilu be'etzim being makdish this kli, and he needs to evaluate its value, or right, so kilu, he's basically saying, this thing is hektish, or the value of this thing is upon me. So now we have to figure out what's the value of this thing. Or if he says, I'm giving my erech, but then he says, okay, that thing is going to be a hektish, and I'll redeem it in order to pay off the erech. So I understand in order to, right, so according to Rav Gidol Marav and according to Rav Chizda, in order to release something from hektish, I understand why you would need 3 evaluators, 3 judges. But in the final case, right, but in the final case where I say my erech is upon me, but I don't have the money, so now Bezdin wants to come and evaluate things so that we can then apply it. So we're like first evaluating be'etzim, the value of chulin, so that we can then know to apply it to hektish. So shlosh amali. How do I know that you need 3? So amalei. So Avinu responds, Svaru, it's simply logical. Mali ayule, mali lafuke. What's the difference if I'm making something hektish or if I'm redeeming something from hektish, releasing something from hektish? Afuke, my timer. When releasing something from hektish, how come I need 3 judges? Dilmatoi. Well, because otherwise you might be making a mistake. We want to make sure there's no mistakes. Nu dizel bazach. Ayule nami dilmatoi. So also when being makdish epis, so right, making something into hektish, so also we're going to want to have 3 judges to make sure that there are no mistakes. Makes sense? Rabbi Yehuda said that one of the 3 judges needs to be a kohen. So I taka understand Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. That it says in the pasuk kohen, it says ve'herich hakohen oisab yom bein tov ve'im kercha kohen keniyeh. So Taka says that that you need a kohen involved in the erech process. So I understand why one of the 3 judges should have to be a kohen. According to Rabbanan who said that you don't need any of them to be kohanim, well then why does the pasuk say kohen? I assume it's referring to v'herich hakohen. Why does it say kohen if you don't actually need a kohen? Kasha. It's Taka a good kasha, says the Gemara. Hakakos tishuv kohen. And then the Mishnah said if you're makdish karka and you want to release the karka from hektish, so you need 10 people to evaluate the property. 9 of them could be Yisraelim. 1 of them at least would have to be a kohen. How do we know this? Well, because in the parsha of Arochin / Ekdeshis, it says kohen 10 times. The first 3 kohen, the first 3 mentions of kohen is by Arochin. The next 3 are when you're makdish an animal, and the final 4 are when you're makdish property. It says kohen 10 times. So chad legufe. Okay, so the first time it says kohen, it means you need a kohen. But Hanoch, every other time it says kohen is a miut achar miut, right? Kohen, the word kohen be'etzem is a miut, it's exclusionary. It's saying kohanim, not anybody else. So it says kohen once, okay, fine, so it means dafka kohanim. But the second time it says kohen, it's an exclusionary word after we already had kohen one time, which is already exclusionary. So it's a miut achar miut, it's an exclusion after an exclusion. Right? 2 negatives make a positive. Right? 1 mute after the next, that second mute is not coming to exclude, it's coming to include. That what it means is that even if 9 of them are Yisraelim and only 1 of them is a kohen, beseder. So the first time it says kohen, it means you need a kohen, but every other subsequent mention of kohen is actually to include Yisraelim, that it could be 9 Yisraelim and 1 kohen. Maskeflo, Rav Huna, Rav Nosin, maybe I'll say it should be 5 kohanim and 5 Yisraelim, because meaning it says kohen, so it means a kohen. Then it says kohen, which is miut achar miut, to say that it could be Yisrael. But then when it says kohen nachamo, it should say, okay, another kohen. But then when it says kohen nachamo, it should be Yisrael, and Shekilu go kohen Yisrael, kohen Yisrael, kohen Yisrael, kohen Yisrael, kohen Yisrael. It should be 5 and 5. Kasha. Take agute kasha vadam kayotze boin. And we said that also if you're makdish a person, also you need 10 people to be to release for makdish. Adam ikodesh for the Gemara, but can you be makdish a person? Can you be makdish a person? When a person says, I'm giving my value to the base Hamikdash, you need 10 people to figure out his value. A person says, I'm giving my value to the base Hamikdash, Shaman also, we evaluate him like in Eved that would be sold in Shuk Machne Yehuda. Although I've never noticed that, and I'm very happy that I haven't noticed that. So maybe Shuk Machne Yehuda a long time ago. Anyways, fine. Shaman also ke'eved animko b'shuk v'eved iskash l'karkos, and an eved is compared to karkos, and therefore just like karka needs 10, so ochit an eved needs 10, and ochit a person who says I'm giving my value to the Beis Hamikdash, and we need, right? So this is different than erech, right? Erech we said is a fixed amount, but domim is the value as though you would be sold as an eved, and that needs 10 for the valuation, because people are like, right, so we're saying that for your domim, you'd be valued like an eved, and eved is domim l'karka, and therefore it would be 10 people. By Reb Ovin asks an interesting kasha, Seira oimid ligzos bechamo. So now Reb Ovin asks, what about hair that is ready to be cut? I arguably need a haircut. I arguably usually need a haircut because I usually don't get a haircut when I needed a haircut. So then I usually just need a haircut. Some would say I need a haircut now. Some would say maybe you're right, but I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I'll call upon him. Hair that is ready to be cut. Is it considered like it's already cut, or is it considered like it is not already cut? Meaning, we know that metaltlin requires 3 to evaluate its value. Karka, or people, require 10. So hair that needs to be unhaired, hair, what's the opposite of hair? What's the opposite of hair? I don't know that there is an opposite of hair. Okay, let's just use like normal speak. A person needs to get a haircut. I guess the opposite of hair, maybe as far as I'm concerned, is a haircut right now. So what are we talking about? So therefore, hair that needs to be haircutted, so is it considered like it's already been haircutted? And therefore, if you're makdish, your hair that needs to be haircutted, it would be, you would evaluate it with 3 judges? Or is it considered like, well, since you haven't haircutted it, since you haven't yet haircutted it, it's still considered like it is part of the person, and therefore it needs 10 people. Chaver, what do you think of this kasha? Exciting times. So kigazus dami, do we say it's considered like it's already been haircutted, uvishlosha, and therefore it's with 3 judges? Okay, mechuber dami, or is it considered like, well, it's still connected to the person, so therefore 10? Uvasar needs 10. Toshma, come in here. Hamakdish es avdo, if a person is makdish his eved. Okay. In me'alimbo. So there's no din me'ila, because there's no me'ila by karkos, and of course eved is iskash the karka, and according to Tanakama that we just read, there's no distinction for hair. It's all considered like part of the eved. Reb Shimon Gamliel or me'alim b'sayre. Whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel argues that actually when it comes to his hair, it would be considered like a metaltlin, and there would be a din. Me'ila v'kaimelan, and we hold the b'sayra omed ligzos plige, that the machlokes between Tanakam and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is with regard to hair that is ready to be haircutted. Shma mina, so we see that the question about hair that is ready to be haircutted is a machlokes. Tanakama says it would be considered like it's already been it would be considered like karka. Right, okay, and therefore it would require 10. And Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says it's considered like it's haircutted, and it would require 3. So let's say that the machlokes between Tanakam and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is like the following machlokes between Reb Meir and the Rabbanon. That's not the Mishnah Reb Meir or Mrs. Reb Meir. That there are things that are connected to the ground, but we don't consider them as such. We don't consider them like they are connected to the ground. When the Chacham disagree, they say if it's connected to the ground, it's considered like the ground. Okay, Ketzad, no, tell me more. What's a practical example so we can understand? Tunis, Masati, L'cho. Well, for example, if Shimon says to Reuven, I gave you 10 grapevines that were laden with grapes. But Reuven says, Nit, you gave me 5, not 10. Oh, Chevenu. Immediately when you hear that, you think, Moide b'miktzah satayni yishova. Right? Shimon saying, I lent you 10. Reuven saying, you lent me 5. Moide b'miktzah satayni yishova. Of course, Reuven has to swear that he's telling the truth. However, there's no shvuis when it comes to karka. There's no swearing when it comes to property. We're going to learn this in Masechta Shavuos, apparently. After Masechta Sanhedrin, we're going to learn Makkos quickly, and then Masechta Shavuos. So, therefore, so there's no Shavuot when it comes to property. So therefore, the shaila is, are these vines that are laden with fruit, are those fruits considered like they've already been harvested, if they're ready to be harvested, as we'll see in a second, and therefore they would be considered like metaltlin, and therefore modem mitzasatani yishova, or are they considered like they're still connected to the ground, in which case there's no shvur. Reb Meir says, yeah, you're chayiv a shvur. Okay. Whereas the Chacham say, no, if these grapes are connected to the ground, they're considered like the ground. And we're talking about grapes that are ready to be harvested, and the question is, are they considered like they've already been harvested? Reb Meir says we treat them like they've already been harvested, therefore they're metaltlin, and therefore is chayiv shvur from modeb miktsasatani yishova. U'ma'asover lav kibtzur is damyon, and the Chacham say they are not considered like they're harvested; they're still connected to the ground, and therefore there's no chiyuv shvur. Okay, fine. So we want to say that hair, grapes, same difference. That when it comes to being makdish your eved and the din me'ilah, the Tanna Kama says that the hair would be considered connected, and we would say the same thing by grapes. That's like the Chacham, that the grapes are considered connected to the ground. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel had said that the hair is considered disconnected, so that would be like Reb Meir, who says that the grapes are considered disconnected. So let's say that these two machloiksin are consistent. Lei nit. Afilu tema Reb Meir. You can even say that Reb Meir, who says that by the grapes they're considered disconnected, would agree with the Tanna Kama when it comes to the hair, and say that the hair is considered still connected, like the Tanna Kama, unlike Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Because Ad kan luka Reb Meir hasam, Reb Meir says davka by grapes they're considered disconnected, because kokam deshavgalu mikchash kachashe, because once the grapes are ready to be harvested, they must be harvested. The longer you leave them on, the worse they're going to get. They're going to get ruined. So therefore, Meir says, look, you have these grapes, they're ready to be harvested, they need to be harvested, so they're considered like they're disconnected from the ground. However, when it comes to hair, the longer you leave the hair on the head, the better it gets. You hear this? You hear this? You should resist getting a haircut. Because the longer the hair is on the head, the better it is. So therefore, Reb Meir would say that by hair that is ready to get haircutted, it would. You can argue that Reb Meir would say it would still be considered connected to the head. Okay, so we can't necessarily say that the machloikes between the Tanna Kama and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel lines up necessarily with the machloikes between Reb Meir and the Chachamim. So now continues. The Gemara continues in sort of analyzing the Mishnah. So now the Mishnah had talked about Roveya and Nirva. So now what the Mishnah had talked about is Roveya. Roveya would be, at least in the context of the Mishnah, a boy animal that has bia with a girl human. And we said in that case, assuming that it was consensual, the girl is chayav es misa, and the Roveya, the ox, let's say, is chayav misa as well. And we also talk about nirva. If a boy human has bia with a ox, I guess regardless of the gender, so again, both the boy human and the ox would be chayav skila, I believe. What about an ox that has bia with a boy human? What do you want me to tell you? Tori v'lomar anu tzrichin. So says the Gemara Kapasik Vitani that when we talk about a roveya, when we talk about an ox having bia with a human, so the Mishnah just simply says roveya and nirva. It doesn't say whether the roveya was roveya a boy or a girl, human. Loshna roveya zachar. It doesn't matter if the ox had bia with a boy, Veloshna Raveh and Nekeva, or if the ox had bia with a girl. Bishlam Raveh and Nekeva. Okay, so I understand the context of our Mishnah vis-a-vis an ox having bia with a girl. The Pasuk says, "V'araktes ha'isha v'esa behema," that you kill the girl and you kill the animal. Okay, well, there you go. Explicit pasuk. How do we know that even when an ox has, has bia with a boy, that it would be the same halacha, that the ox and the boy are chayiv misa? The pasuk says, "Kol shochiv behema mos yumos." Well, we have a pasuk that says that anybody who lies with an animal, mos yumas, I believe that's skila. Imenuin in the shochev, and if it is not talking about a boy human who has bia with an animal, and as Rashi points out, because we already have a pasuk, ish asher yitain shchavto v'gomer, that a boy who commits bestiality, so he's chayiv misa. So then what's pshat with kol shochev and behema? So imenuin in the shochev taneu in the nishkav. Well, if it's not talking about a boy who has bia with an animal, then it must be talking about an animal who has bia with a boy. And the pasuk specifically says kol shochev, as opposed to, I guess, nishkav. Lakushe nishkav the shochev, in order to compare the two. That when understanding the punishment for an ox that had bia with a boy, it's going to be the same as a boy who has bia with an ox. Just like when it is initiated by the boy, so then both the animal and the person is going to be a besin of 23. So also when an ox has bia with a boy, and the boy is on the receiving end, so then that would also be 23 judges. Givaldi. Okay. This next bit is going to be interesting, I would argue. Shor anisko be'esim v'shlosha. So a shor anisko. So if you have an animal that kills a person, so we kill the animal, and that's with skila, but also it's with 23 judges. How do we know so? Shenemas bazaz ashor yisokov agam bailav yumos. That we stone the shore, but also the bailim. Kemisas habaylim kach misas ashor. And the limud from v'gam bailav yumos is that just like the bailim, if a person kills somebody, so then the court would be a court of 23. So also this animal has the same. It's judged in a court of 23. Amalei Abai l'Rava. Abai asked kasha to Rava, which is interesting, because I would have expected Abai would ask this kind of a question to Rabba, because Rabba was Abai's Rebbe. Rava and Abai were contemporaries. I feel like Abai doesn't usually ask questions to Rava. I feel like he argues with Rava, but I would assume if he was asking a question, he would be asking a question to Rabba. But anyways, I don't see any different gears here though. This is very interesting. Abai says to Rav, as maybe some of us at Babylon Talmud have been wondering, that when the pasuk says that you stone the ox and also kill the owner, why are we assuming that it means not that we actually kill the owner, but rather that just like the owner, if he were to kill somebody else, would be judged in a bezdin of 23. Essentially, when there's a capital case for a human, it's a bezdin of 23. So we're comparing the owner to the ox only so far as to say that the ox would be judged in a bezdin of 23, just like a human would. But Abaye asked Rava the kasha that maybe many of us were wondering. Maybe it does mean that the owner is also chayiv misa, that if a person's ox kills, and this is Davka talking about a shor muad, an ox who has already been warned 3 times, and then it kills after that, maybe it's Taka saying, we kill the ox Clearly the ox hasn't killed 3 times yet, because then you would have killed the ox after the first time already, but it gored 3 times. And then still the owner was not properly guarding his ox, apparently. And the ox now killed somebody. Maybe we do kill the owner. Maybe that is what it's saying. So this is going to be very interesting. It's going to be technical, but interesting. Technical but interesting. I would even preface this. I'm actually going to stop for a second and preface this by saying a few things. The first thing I will say is that the punishment for murder, that if Shimon kills Reuven, the punishment for murder is that, right? That if Shimon kills Reuven, we kill Shimon. How do we kill Shimon? There's of course 4 capital punishments. There's skila, sreifa, hereg, v'chenek. Which one is for murder? The answer is hereg. The answer is saif. We plop off his head with a sword. Pasha, take out a sword. I was recently in the Israel Museum. In the Israel Museum, they have samurai swords. So maybe we would go to the Israel Museum, take a samurai sword on the neck. Although the 6th parak of, we're almost done with the first parak, the 6th parak, I believe, yes, of Masechta Sanhedrin is called Nigmar Adin. I think maybe that's where we talk about. Although, what's the 10th parak? Elin and Echnokin? I don't know. Rest assured, in Masechta Sanhedrin, we will get to head plopping and samurai swords, I think. Anyways, so that is the answer. That if Shimon kills Reuven, so we kill Shimon by plopping off his head with a sword. Now, okay, that's thing number 1. That the punishment for when a person murders is saif. The next thing I want to point out is that there's basically like 2 categories of capital punishments, right? As I pointed out, there's 4 capital punishments, skila, sreifa, hereg, v'chenek. But you could break those into like 2 categories, like 2 groups. Skila and sreifa is one group, that's the more stringent group. And then hereg, v'chenek is like the more lenient group. Skila and sreifa being stoning and burning, that's the more stringent group. And hereg, v'chenek, sword and strangulation, is the more lenient group. Those are considered kind of less severe ways of dying. Now within those 2 groups, there's a machlokas, I believe, between the Chachamim and Reb Shimon about which are considered more rougher punishments. Okay? So I believe the Chachamim's approach is skila, sreifa, hereg, chenek. That skila is the most severe, sreifa is the second most severe, hereg, sword, is the third most severe, and or the second to least severe, and chenek, strangulation, is the least severe. Reb Shimon, however, says that it goes sreifa, skila, that sreifa is the most severe, followed by skila, and then chenek, followed by saif, by hereg, by sword. Sword being the least stringent. Now, okay, Azoy, I think that is enough for us to move forward. Okay, so basically, to point out that, within the last thing that you said, that skila is be'etzem going to begin, right? Skila is certainly one of the more stringent deaths, either the most stringent or at the very least the second to most stringent. And whether sword is the most lenient, like Reb Shimon says, or whether it is the second to most lenient, like the Chachamim say, so that's Taka Machlokas, because according to Chachamim, more lenient than sword would be strangulation, chenek. Okay. Thank you for I think it was good that we kind of discussed this before proceeding, because it's going to be relevant. Okay. So the question is, when it says Asher Yisaka v'gam ba'alav yumos, maybe v'gam ba'alav yumos taka means that we kill the owner of the ox who killed somebody else. So Im Kain, the Gemara says, well, if what the pasuk was saying, right? So let's say Shimon's ox killed Reuven. Okay, So if what the pasuk was saying is that we kill, in addition to killing Shimon's ox, we also kill Shimon, it could just say Ashor Yisakal v'gam bailav, that we stone the ox, but also Shimon. But what's the word you must there? Ashor Yisakal v'gam bailav, you must. You must is extra to teach not that we kill Shimon, but that Kimisas Habayim Kach Misas Ashor. So again, Imkein Lichtov V'gam Bailav V'lishtok. I should just say Ashor Yisakal V'gam Bailav, and that's it. But Ikosav Rachmana Achi, if the Torah said that, however, Hava Amina B'skila. Well, if it says Hashor Yisakal V'gam Bailav, I might think that the ox is stoned and Shimon is also stoned. So therefore I need Yumas to say that no, it's not going to be skila. Rather Yumas is stam misa, which is chenek. Okay, so it's not skila. I need Yumas to Betzim tell me that it's not going to be, that Shimon isn't going to get skila. I could say that he's killed, just not with skila. Okay. But skila sakadai, take 1 second. 1 second. Would you really think that if Shimon's ox kills Ruvain, Shimon would be chayiv skila? Come on. That's ridiculous. If Shimon himself killed Ruvain, his punishment would be saif, which is from the more lenient category of capital punishments. It makes no sense to say that when Shimon's ox kills Ruvain, Shimon didn't do anything, right? Shimon didn't do anything, his ox did it. And now Shimon would get skila? We're killing him in a more stringent manner than if he himself would have done it? That makes no sense. So therefore, impossible to tell me that, if it just said, Ashor Yisakal V'gam Bailav, I would have thought he gets skila. I would not have thought he gets skila. That's ridiculous. So if I already know that Ashor Yisakal V'gam Bailav, so it would mean that if we just said Ashor Yisakal V'gam Bailav, okay, so I would say that we stone the ox, we also kill the owner, we kill Shimon, and obviously we're not talking about skila. So why do you need Yumas? Yeah, but maybe the reason why it says Yumas is la'akule ale, la'fuke misayif l'chenek. Okay, but maybe it is talking about that Shimon is going to be killed. But what it's saying is, Ashor Yisakal, we stone the ox. V'gam bailav, but when it comes to Shimon, Yumas, he gets chenek. So if Shimon himself would have killed Ruvain, he would get saif. And maybe what the pasuk is saying is that, but when he himself kills, but when his ox kills, he doesn't get saif, he gets chenek. So now, as I pointed out, it's taka machlokas, whether saif is more stringent or more lenient than chenek. So if you say like the chachamim, that saif is more stringent than chenek, then okay, I can understand that argument. To say that Ashor Yisakal V'gam Bailav Yumas means that Shimon is also chayiv misa. And what it's saying is that whereas if he himself killed, he would be chayiv saif, which is more stringent than chenek. But it says Yumas to say that it's the default capital punishment, which is chenek, to say that no, he gets because he didn't do it, his ox did it, he doesn't get saif, he gets chenek. So now says the Gemara Hanicha, I understand our Mishnah, which says that is not how to explain the pasuk, and rather what it means is that Shimon is not killed, and what it's to say is that just like Shimon, when necessary, is judged by 23, so also in this case the ox would be judged by 23. Well, that makes sense if you hold like Reb Shimon, who says that chenek is more stringent than saif. So therefore, it would not make sense to say that if he kills, it's besayif, but if his ox kills, then it's chenek. Chenek is more stringent than saif. So that wouldn't make any sense. So what's Yumas doing there? It's not to say that it's chenek. So it's to say that it's with 23. That the ox is with 23 to compare it to a person who has 23, right? So I understand our Mishnah, according to the opinion, according to Reb Shimon, doesn't say Reb Shimon, I think it's Reb Shimon's opinion, Mandamar Chenek Chomer, who says that Chenek is more stringent than Saif, and therefore Yumas can't be coming to teach that it's Chenek, because that wouldn't make any sense. So therefore Yumas is coming to teach that the ox is judged with 23. Kill, but if you say that chenek is more lenient than saif, well then, I could taka make that argument. That when it says, Vegam Balav Yumas, it means that Shimon gets killed with chenek, which is more lenient than what he would normally get, which is saif, but because it was his ox, it's chenek rather than saif, which is if it was him himself. So I could make that argument. Lo sagadatich, no. Because the pasuk says, Im kofer yushas olav, because the very next pasuk talks about kofer. Kofer is a payment that you pay in lieu of being killed. But now, if it enters your mind that Shimon would be chayiv misa, the pasuk says that you can't accept kofer, payment in lieu of the death penalty for a murderer. You can't, and therefore, how could it be that the next pasuk is talking about im kofer yushas olav? The next pasuk is talking about paying kofer. If you're also saying that Shimon is chayiv misa, if Shimon is chayiv misa, there's no such concept as kofer. So rather it must be that he's not chayiv misa. However, the says the Gemara, whoa, no, 1 second, no, I'll argue that Shimon is chayiv misa, but since it wasn't him who killed, it was his ox who killed, there's a special dispensation here that kofer is an option because it wasn't him who killed, it was his ox who killed. If he himself was the murderer, well then there's no option to pay his way out of it. He's going to be chayiv misa. But katal shoro, however, maybe what the pasuk is saying is that Shimon is chayiv misa. However, since it was his ox that killed, lifok nafshe b'mamona, there is an option to pay kofer instead. Because maybe he is chayiv misa. Elo, Amachizki rather says Chizki v'chein Tana devei Chizki. Amakol, the pasuk says Mosumas hamake rotzeachu, that the pasuk says that a murderer is chayiv misa because rotzeachu, because he is the murderer. Avitzichosu at argo, you kill a person when he himself is the murderer. V'at argo avitzichashoro, you do not kill him when he is not the murderer, when it is his ox that kills. If it's his ox that kills, there's no capital punishment for Shimon, and that is that. So right, he is not chayiv misa, and therefore, what's pshat with Ashor Yisakov V'gam Ba'alav Yumas? To teach that just like the Bailim, when there's a capital case, it's 23 judges. So too, the ox, we're talking about 23 judges. When the Yidden were on Har Sinai, so it says, right, V'gamatzon va'bokar al yiru el mul harahu, I believe. Right? That no animals were allowed on Har Sinai during Matan Torah. What if an animal did go on Har Sinai? So it's judged with how many judges? Migomer Shah Midoris Olo. Do we learn out that sort of one-time rule about animals going on Har Sinai from sort of general cases of animals that are chayiv misa that we just said is 23. So Tashma Kamanir the Tani Rabbi Yechezkel in Behema im Ish lo yichyeh. Right, the pasuk says there, whether it's an animal, whether it's a person, he will not live if they go on Har Sinai. Ma'ish b'chav gimel, apeh b'chav gimel. Just like a person is judged with 23, so also one of those animals, if they ventured to go on Har Sinai during Matan Torah, would be judged in a bezin of 23. Well, I didn't expect this daf to be so long. I thought this would be quicker. These dafs in Sanhedrin, they've been longer than Bava Basra. I'm pretty sure. They feel like they've been longer than Bava Basra. They haven't been harder, I don't think. I don't think that they've been harder, but they've been very pleasant, in my opinion, but they haven't been short. They have not been short. Says so continues the Gemara in analyzing the Mishnah, Ari v'azei v'chulei. So we said that a lion and a wolf and all sorts of things, they're also judged with 23. Rabbi Eliezer had said, Kol hakodem l'hargo zacha. Kol hakodem l'hargon zacha. Anybody who strikes preemptively, givaldik. So the shaila is that when Rabbi Eliezer says anybody who strikes any of these, a wolf preemptively, or whatever, fine. Preemptively, Givaldi. So is that talking about just stam? If you see a wolf, you could just kill a wolf because it's dangerous? That's one option. I believe that's the option of Rabbi Yochanan that we're about to see. Or is it no, if a wolf killed a person, well then that changes everything. And at that point, that at that point, if it killed a person, go for it. Just kill it and you're doing a good thing. So that's the shayla. But by default, you would be unable to kill a wolf. That's the shayla. Amr Rish Lakish says, Rish Lakish, V'hushay misu. So Rish Lakish says, look, only if let's just use wolf as an example. Only if the wolf has already killed somebody, well then that's where Eliezer says that look, if you could just kill it, just kill it. But if the wolf didn't kill anybody, leave it alone. No, you can't just kill it. So we see that Rish Lakish holds Yeshlin Tibris, that you can domesticate a wolf. You can raise it, you can domesticate it. It's not necessarily dangerous. And therefore it's not considered like hefker. You could raise a wolf. Right? And only if it then kills somebody do we say, okay, well this wolf is problematic, and then Rabbi Eliezer says, Kol Kodem L'Horgan Zocha. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Rish Lakish and says, Afapisha Lo Yimisu, that even if a wolf or a lion or a bear, even if they have not killed, still, Kol Kodem L'Horgan Zocha, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Amoksover, so Rabbi Yochanan holds, Ein Leim Taibus, you cannot domesticate these animals, Bein Loim Bailim, and they're considered hefker, and Kol Kodem L'Horgan Zocha in any scenario. Tonight we learned in our Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer Kol Kodem L'Horgan Zocha, that whoever preemptively kills them, Zocha, merits. What does he merit? Some of the Rabbi Yochanan, I understand according to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that these wild animals are hefker, and you can just kill them. What are you meriting? You merit their hides. Kill a bear, get the fur. Or you kill a lion, then you can put it on the floor of your office, and you could show that you bested a lion. Rish Lakish. According to Rish Lakish, according to Rish Lakish, who says that you can, right, when Rabbi Eliezer says Kol Kodem L'Horgan Zocha is only if they've already killed, well then we're saying by default you can't just kill a wolf, let's say. But once it killed, now it's like it's Chayiv Misa, and you could kill it, but we know, as we're about to see, that, for example, we have an ox that gores somebody and kills somebody, and Bezdin says, okay, we have to stone it. Well then, you can't get an oath from it anymore. So, according to Rish Lakish, a wolf that kills somebody, which and Rabbi Eliezer is saying, Kol Kodem L'Horgan Zocha, so it's considered like it's been condemned to death, but then it should be also by Noah. So what are you being zocha to? What are you meriting to? Once they killed, Shavinu Rabban, Kiman Dugomar Dinayu, then they should be considered like the verdict is out and that they're chayiv misa. V'isur anoyininu, they should be also by Noah. So what does it mean, zocha? What are you meriting to? My zocha, what does it mean that you merited zocha l'shamayim? That you merited in heaven, that you did something good. There's a wild wolf that's killing people, and you killed the wild wolf and removed the threat. So Hashem views that act favorably. That's what you merit. Tanakavasa Rish Lakish, talk about a price supporting Rish Lakish, Echad Shor She'emis, whether you have an ox that kills, Vechabeim V'chaya She'emis, or an animal or a wild animal that killed. B'chav Gimel is with 23 judges. Rabbi Eliezer Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer Shor She'emis Be'esim V'shlosha, says Rabbi Eliezer that a ox that kills must be judged with 23. Ushar be'ema v'chaya, but any other animal or wild animal she'emisu that killed, kola kodem l'organ zochaban l'shamayim. That if it killed, so then whoever preemptively strikes them merits in heaven for having done an exemplary act. One more shtickle, says the Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva Omer v'chule, Rabbi Kiva says that they are judged with 23. Rabbi Kiva anu Tanakama, is Rabbi Kiva saying the same thing as the Tanakama. The difference is Nachash. Akiva would say that a snake is not judged with 23, whereas the Tanna Kama would say a snake is even judged with 23. Friends, that was the Tesvav, the 15 of Masechta Sanhedrin. We just basically went weiter in the Mishnah. We learned about Arochin, Kodshim, Miut Achamiut, Lerabos. We learned about Seir, Haomi Ligzos Kegozus Domi, same thing by Anovim Haruin Libotzer. We learned about Roveya, Nirva. We learned about different capital punishment scenarios. And and then wild animals and things like that. Peace out.